tense moments in the US presidential race. As we speak, it is a seesaw battle with both candidates locked in a neck-and-neck fight at this stage. The race began with Mitt Romney surging ahead, but Obama soon caught up. Opinion polls have predicted a cliffhanger in many of the crucial swing states. The latest figures show Obama and Mitt Romney at 163 each. That's how neck and neck it is at this stage. It's been a fight where Mitt Romney, the Republican contender, has gone ahead first. He surged ahead, but now it's neck and neck. The latest figures, 163 each for each of these contenders. All right, here in our studios, we're privileged to be joined this morning to discuss the results, to discuss the entire process, and more importantly, to discuss the issues and how they actually will be impacting India and Indo-US relations. We're privileged to be joined this morning by former Indian ambassador to the United States, Ambassador Romney-5. Thanks for joining us this morning, sir. Also former diplomat and senior analyst Rajiv Dogra is with us. In a short while from now, we will be joined from the United States by Professor Sumit Ganguly. My colleague Maha Siddiqui is at a US embassy event in the national capital, where she will be getting us perspective from there as well. Ambassador Sen, I'd like to come to you first. You've no doubt been observing the way this particular election has played out. What has stood out for you?
Well, what you just pointed out, it's very close, and it just is that I happen to know both the incumbent and
yes,
the challenger, and one aspect is it's very clear that whichever way the Americans decide, for us there's going to be continuity.
Yeah.
But it's a question of nuances on different issues, but basic continuity in our relationship, that is one factor, and one factor why India was not mentioned during the debate, and neither was any major partner or ally.
Yeah. So you're saying that no matter who wins, it's going to be advantage India as far as relations are concerned, economic relations.
Yes, no, across the board.
Yeah.
Across the board, I think there might be some nuances in terms of some economic issues, marginal, one way or the other, but in a broad direction, in terms of security policies, in terms of our vital national security interest,
which underlines so much of the quality of the relationship.
And a lot of the issues which were discussed will have a direct impact on us, whether you take Afghanistan, Pakistan, China, I mean our biggest neighbor, Pakistan our third largest neighbor, Afghanistan we have a vital stake in what's happening there, and across in Iran and the Gulf where also we have a significant stake in what's happening there. So it has a direct impact on us.
It has a direct impact on us. Rajiv Dogra, my question to you is, isn't it true that at some point in the past India was reasonably cut off for this decision being made in the United States to not really have much of an effect? But considering how plugged in India is into the global economy and how close relations are between India and the United States, especially over the last decade, what's happening in the United States has a direct, very real impact on India, doesn't it?
Well, let me not be over enthusiastic about it, because it still does not have a huge impact either way. But for America, India is not a headache like Pakistan would be, China would be, Iran would be, or Syria is presently. So in many respects, India is a source of comfort for America, maybe also a source of some strength in difficult situations. I'll come to that later, but let me answer your first question as to the election process itself, because that throws up very interesting issues.
Indeed, yeah.
$2.5 billion spent by the candidates themselves. Some people say that the overall expenditure, including US government's expenditure, is $6.5 billion.
Yes.
This is for an economy which is not doing well. Compare this to the expenditure by UK in 2010 on the general elections. That is all of $50 million.
Yes.
And UK is not exactly a tiny country. Secondly, if this is about the middle class and about the poor, $6 billion is a bit thick
Yes.
And $2.5 billion between two candidates is beyond the reach of any
especially when it's a
class.
war on an economic plank.
So no middle class man from America can contest an election like this.
Yes.
The other thing is the acrimony of it.
Yes. The negativity.
Extremely
and the amount
negative.
of money spent on that negativity.
So
yes.
It's an extremely negative reaction, and the image which comes repeatedly to my mind is that of that 4-year-old girl who said, enough. Can't we have someone else instead of Obama and Romney? The third image which comes to my mind of the election process is that of the caste system.
Yeah.
Be it the color, Hispanics, Afro-Americans, or gays.
There's a huge element of that's been infused into the process.
So, you know, and a country which sort of holds the banner for human rights and freedom and so on has such deep divisions.
Yes.
And those divisions are reflected in the results.
We're actually going to be talking about those divisions and the negativity that we've seen in this entire process. We're going to take the wealth of wisdom that we have with both our guests, Ambassador Sen and Rajiv Dogra, into how they've viewed previous elections in the United States, compare it to this one to see how they really contrast, because the amount of money that's been spent, the amount of acrimony, like Rajiv Dogra put it, that we've seen in this particular election is seriously unprecedented. Well, let's just tell you now the numbers that are coming in. 172 for Barack Obama, 163 for Mitt Romney are the latest figures coming in. Remember, a couple of hours from now, things will be completely clear. Those swing states, those votes are coming in, votes still being counted, 172 to 163. We're going to continue talking to our guests. We're going to quickly switch across now to our affiliate, Al Jazeera, for a quick spot check on what's going on in the United States.
Trip around the various headquarters for the night of the campaigns.
This is a great time to pray.
Oh, I wonder who that is.
Won't you bow your head and close your eyes?
It looks like a minister leading a prayer session at Chicago, which is where Obama's supporters have been gathering tonight.
We invoke your presence.
We were going to take you to Mr. Romney's campaign for the night headquarters, but unfortunately it doesn't look like we can. Perhaps they've turned lights off in anticipation. Okay, let's bring our guests in here. I've been here much longer than I have, and isn't it strange? What actually happens is there's this enormous build-up, isn't there? And unless it becomes one of those extraordinary elections like 2000, it's off like a balloon that you've let go in the room. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's hurry up and wait, and then all of a sudden it's decided.
And I think what it is, it's a testament to the fact that there's so much time and so much money spent on American elections now. I mean, they essentially run for 2 years at this point. And so you don't have as many surprises as there used to be when people spend 2 years analyzing people's garbage and everything they watch on television and finding out every single way voters are going to vote in advance. And that's kind of what we're seeing tonight.
Don't forget, there was a newspaper in the 1940s or 1950s that actually printed the wrong winner.
Dewey Beats Truman, yes.
That's right.
But we're, decades ahead in terms of polling investigation now.
That's
smarter,
right.
or just younger?
I don't know.
Well,
I'm not sure.
we're only 12 years after the debacle of 2000, when a bunch of networks called it wrong, and then called it wrong again, and then everybody had to go back and lick their wounds and settle in for a couple of months of uncertainty. So there is caution in the news business not to call these things wrong, but there's incredible pressure.
Okay, we are not calling Barack Obama the winner.
No, we're not. Absolutely not.
We need more than what we've heard so far, but it would be a very strange set of circumstances presented before us now that would make us change that.
I think
that's
a fair
assessment.
I think that's the
I know
rational.
that's going around the houses.
No, I think that's the smart, rational way to look at it, right? The probability at this moment is highly on the side of Obama winning. Does that mean that Romney has no path? No, it doesn't mean that, but it means that his path is very narrow.
And clearly, if you look at conservative commentators and the like on Twitter and elsewhere, they're clearly dispirited, extremely pessimistic, while liberals are trying to constrain themselves and not burst out into premature celebration, but they're not being very successful. There's clearly the sense that it's heading very clearly in the direction of the Democrats.
Hang on just a second, because I'm going to go to Alan Fisher, who's in Boston and has been liaising with the Romney campaign. Alan, let me ask you a little bit of housekeeping here, a little bit of mechanics of the night. It is an if, we've just been going through that, but if Mitt Romney is not to be the next president of the United States, is there a protocol that you know of that will be followed, a timetable, or is it never discussed?
Well, what Mitt Romney has to do, of course, is get the number for the president's campaign. He will then have to call Barack Obama in Chicago and concede the election. Remember back in 2000, Al Gore conceded to George W. Bush when it looked as if Florida was going to Bush. And then when it went back to too close to call, Al Gore called up again and said, remember that concession I gave you? Well, I'm withdrawing it now. So I think he'll want to be absolutely certain before he makes the call. But if Barack Obama was losing, he would make the call to Governor Romney, and Romney would then become the president-elect. So it looks as if it will be down to Mitt Romney to make that call. I'm sure he's going to wait until it's absolutely closed off the route to 270 before he makes his concession. But he's at the Westin Hotel, which is just right next door to the convention centre here. He could almost walk over, but I'm sure the Secret Service will bring him into the building and then bring him up onto the stage behind me, where he'll speak to the probably a couple of hundred people that are here in the hall and the millions watching across the United States. So that would be the protocol, David. It would be down to the governor and his campaign to make the decision that essentially the election was lost. He would have to call the president and make that concession speech. No one from the Democrats can phone him up and say, have you made a decision yet?
It is 11:15 with you, so it's not early doors. When Mr. Romney appears, and we're pretty sure that he will do, rather than just make a phone call and give a TV address, because there's a certain sense of loyalty to those who put so much time and effort into these campaigns. When he appears, will he do so with his wife Anne? Will he do so with any one of the five boys they have and the grandchildren as well?
My understanding is that the five boys are here. He has 18 grandchildren. Some of them are fairly grown up. Some of them are quite young. So I'm not sure all 18 will come onto stage. Certainly he'll be there with Anne Romney. She's been a significant part of his campaign. She's done a lot of going out and speaking to women's groups on behalf of the Republican candidate. Of course, you remember famously after he tried to win the nomination 4 years ago, she was caught on camera as saying, "We are never doing this again." But he went off and he wrote his book in California, and then he decided that he might be interested in a run, approached his wife and said, "What do you think?" And she said, "Do you think you can make a change? Do you think you can make a difference? And do you think you can win it?" And when he said yes, she then gave her permission. So at this time round, she was very much the driving force of a campaign which has really gone on for 6 years. Remember at one point, there were so many frontrunners in the Republican primary process, it was almost anyone but Mitt. But he built up this air and inevitability, and he eventually landed the nomination. He's moved to the political centre over the last few months. He was the etch-a-sketch candidate, to use the famous phrase from one of his senior advisors, when come the general election, everything he said would be like the child's toy, shaken and rubbed away, and then they could build a new candidate. It looks as if the people of America may not have been convinced by that. Still too early to say definitively, but of course the mood here is that things are not going well for the Republicans.
And if you remember, Alan, when you got given your etch-a-sketch for Christmas, it was something you had to turn upside down and shake rather vigorously as well. News out of Florida, 91%. We understand the precincts have reported 91%, and Barack Obama's lead, we are told, in Florida, 16,000. When we last mentioned it, it was round about 20,000. That's just to keep you up to date with one of the other swing states, one of the major swing states there, Florida. So to Patty Culhane with the Obama campaign in Chicago. What was it Alan said? Around about a couple of hundred Romney or Republican supporters there in Boston. How many with you? Not Republicans, Democrats.
Yeah,
I'm going to guess that there's one Republican. It's the former governor of Florida, and you've already spoken to him tonight. I was surprised by that number, just a couple of hundred people, because one of the things that we always look at is crowd counts, and Barack Obama's crowd count really hasn't been all that big. Remember, 4 years ago, he was in Grant Park, took over that huge swath of land, 240,000 people. We're inside, partially because it's much colder this time, but this hall holds about 18,000 people. It is starting to fill up. I can tell you the president's still at home. I wanted to mention to you before that I know you guys were talking about the fact that it may have seemed slightly happy. It could be, and I'm just going to throw this potential out there, because this campaign's actually been happening and going on since I was in the 8th grade. So it does look like it could possibly end tonight, and a lot of people were saying that it didn't look like it was going to. I do think it's important to point out, though, that even if Barack Obama wins and it's a close election, he is still looking at a divided Congress and some very big problems. The president has fallen far short in describing to the American people exactly what's going to be needed to be done in the coming 4 years. We've got very serious issues. For one, the fiscal cliff, as they call it. The beginning of this year, January 1st, very few months from now, taxes for all Americans are going to go up. At the same time, about $100 billion in federal spending is going to be cut. Now, even the IMF has said that will lead to another recession. So he's still going to have to deal with a hostile Congress if he is reelected to try and solve that. Not only that, there's been a lot of talk about the national debt, $16 trillion. Every year the president's been in office, it's been more than $1 trillion. Now, what I've seen over the past couple of years in Congress, they've been fighting over how much more to give the American people. Nobody in this campaign has had an honest discussion with the American people about the choices that are going to have to be made. This has been a campaign that has been remarkable in its lack of specifics and also in some of the just flat untruths that we've been hearing from both of the campaigns. Still, it does look, at least if you listen to the mood in the hall, the music's playing, there's a growing sense of energy. I don't think anyone here is thinking about tomorrow or the fiscal cliff. They're thinking about this long, hard-fought, very expensive $2 billion campaign, and they're thinking that it might be over and they might walk away pretty happy.
Patty, I asked Alan about the Romney family. The Obama family, when it comes to appearing in front of the good, the great, the faithful there, will the entire family, the two girls, Michelle, all of them be there?
They will. Now, Malia and Sasha had to finish school today because the president keeps highlighting that. If you notice, like at the debate, he said, you know, at the convention, you have to go back to school tomorrow. Apparently, he's very into the kids not missing class. So they went through all of their classes and then flew into Chicago with their grandmother, who also lives at the White House with them. Michelle Obama joined the president for his last rally, an emotional rally in Iowa. They've been in Chicago. He played his game of basketball, which he's very superstitious about. He believes that if he plays basketball, then he wins the election. Did a few interviews, worked the phones, but for the most part, for the last couple of hours, he's been sitting at his house in Hyde Park, just a few blocks from here, having dinner with just his close family and possibly one or two aides, but he's expected to eventually make his way over to the hotel where his senior aides are and then make his way here to McCormick Place. Nobody's really giving an estimate on the time frame. It's too early to tell, but I'll let you know as soon as we hear that he's moved from his home.
Okay, Pat.
173 Obama, 174 Mitt Romney. That's how close the Electoral College results are at this particular stage. Remember, the magic figure is 270. Things will become much clearer in the next couple of hours, and we will be live throughout today on this particular story. I want to bring in Ambassador Sen for my second question today. It's something that Rajiv Dogra spoke about. Ambassador Sen, the acrimony that we've seen in this particular election, the negativity that's pervaded the overall message that's been coming out of both campaigns. So much money has been spent on, not really trumpeting one's own achievements, but rather to put down another person's achievements. Is that completely unprecedented? Have you ever seen, has it happened on this scale ever before?
No, I think this has been about the most polarized polity. Not just in the elections, but if you see what's been happening, the gridlock in the US Congress, it's come down to, I think it's about the most polarized witness for a long time, several decades. You had a situation where the budget could not be passed. It was virtually whether federal employees are going to get any, have to go on leave.
Yes.
It came then on other issues. It's become so acrimonious. This is one factor. This is across the body politic. Second factor is on the amount of spending which was referred to. That was in a sense due to Obama, because till the 2004 elections it was basically official funding of the elections, but it was opened up by Obama
to private funding,
because he raised a lot of money, and it was from the grassroots, and there was a tremendous amount of, so that opened up this expenditure, and then there was
suddenly there was no ceiling, there were no
limits to how much could be spent. Then you had a Supreme Court ruling in 2010, if I remember, which freed the way, because there used to be a ceiling on individual contributions, but that opened the way for what was known as the super PACs, that is political action committees, and that ran into in massive amounts of money. So this is what I mean. It's most expensive, the most acrimonious in terms of negative ads. Negativity is one aspect, because Romney in a way wanted to focus on the president's record. So he had to go hammer and tongs. And what happened with Obama is that he had to, from soaring rhetoric of hope, he had to come down
to the ground.
Almost a street
into
fighting.
more tangible things.
Not tangible. It was almost a street fighting kind of rebuttal, point by point rebuttal, and a negative.
He simply had to engage at every level.
He had to engage, whether he had to engage or whether, because what was in the first debate, he was criticized for remaining almost aloof, and it didn't play at all well. So he was expected to go on the attack. So whatever it is, this is the polity. What we are seeing today is a very divided polity.